and welcome to the Gary Dunn Show for Veterans Day 2025. I'm your host, Gary Smith. On today's show, we'll take a look back at the game from the shores of Lake Erie this past Saturday against Gannon, and then we'll look at all the scores and standings and everything going on in an exciting PSAC West and regional race, and then we'll preview this upcoming week's opponent, the Shippensburg Raiders. And as always, Coach, we'll bring on Coach Gary Dunn to his show. You can see you right back there. It's your show. It was a good show on Saturday. We talked a little bit right before we start. Gannon's a tough place to play.
Yep.
Not a lot of atmosphere. Sometimes you want, if you're going into a visiting arena, you kind of want that hate and vitriol, but it's not a lot of atmosphere there. Late November is not exactly Chamber of Commerce weather in Erie,
Yep.
PA, but you guys battled. I know we'll talk about it a little bit. It wasn't a Picasso, but a win's a win.
Well, first off, let me thank all the veterans out there that served this country and everything they've done for us. I've texted a couple former teammates today, Jerry Schneider being one, Eric Albach being another. They're both veterans. So let's start off with thanking the veterans out there today. But yeah, we didn't play our best football, but we did enough to win a game on the road. And in the PSAC, sometimes you have to do that. I thought our defense played really well. I thought our defense created turnovers. I think we had 7 sacks. I thought the energy and the will of our defense really showed up all day long. We gave up a couple big plays that we got to get corrected, but it started with us on defense. Gannon was in a situation where their season hasn't worked out like they wanted to. I think they're a good football team. They got good pieces. They played a brutal schedule. So we knew we were going to get everything that they had. They tried faking 2 fake punts on us, and we stopped both of those. It's tough when you get into a situation where a team has nothing to lose. They can go for it on 4th down. They can fake punts. They can run reverses. They can run trick gadget plays. So I thought our defense played really well. I thought our front controlled the game. I thought we got their quarterback's a dynamic kid that can throw it and run it. I think we got a lot of pressure on him and forced him into some bad decisions. So hats off to the defense. I think that was a big part of the reason we got a W up there.
Well, I know I usually look at the individual stats as I'm writing my notes down, and I got to defense this week and saw a number of guys had 10, 9 tackles, but then I scrolled over to the tackle for loss category and the sack category, and I had every intention to adding those up, but I'm not a smart enough man because you had a lot of guys that had 2.0 either sacks or tackle for losses. I mean, it went down the list.
Yeah,
and as you said, it's the front 7.
Yeah, we lived in their backfield. I thought Khalil Taylor did a tremendous job. End up subbing in at our nickel, and KT's kind of we call him KT. He's kind of a guy that plays a lot of different spots for us. He can play he plays corner for us. He plays nickel for us. Made some big special teams play. We'll get to special teams in a minute. He had a couple sacks and did a really good job. I just thought we put a lot of pressure on their offense, and had to come up with 4th down stops, had to stop fake punts. It was a good day. Offensively, we struggled a little bit. Anytime you turn the ball over 4 times, it's not a good day, and we've got to get that corrected. That's going to be the emphasis today when we get to practices. We've got to take care of the football. Our defense is playing pretty well. We can't put ourselves in those situations. But we were able to get the running game going. I thought Kendrick Aganor had his best game yet. I think he had over 150 yards and 3 touchdowns, broke a couple long runs, and you got to give the offensive line credit for that, doing their job. But, I was pleased with the running game, wasn't pleased with the throwing game and the turnovers we had. And I think the turnovers were a lot of us. Gannon's kid made a nice interception on the one play, but other than that, it was just us not executing and not taking care of the football, and we can't do that, and win many games. You're not going to turn the ball over 4 times and win many games.
Well, I mean, the turnovers are one thing, but on the other hand, a lot of your touchdowns were big-time highlight plays. So, on one hand, you're losing possession. On the other hand, you're scoring quickly. If we go back in the first half, 14-7 at the half, but both your touchdowns were highlight, worthy plays. You'll see them on the highlights. Phaeton Hill, 49-yard touchdown run, going a little bit of a broken play, but once he got out in space, and one of the things I started looking at when I was cutting the highlights based on you talking last week is just watching your guys down the field.
Yeah, I was
getting blocks.
Yeah, pleased with the effort there. Kendrick Aganor, actually, it was a pass play where they dropped everybody and Phaeton scrambled, and Kendrick Aganor gets out and throws a huge block to kind of spring him. And then there's one guy left that can catch him, and Deontay Williams is hustling and throws a big block. So that was a big play for us to get us. I think it was 7-0 at that point. They had just scored. To get back to 7-7 was what we needed.
And then once again, it sounded like a broken record. Special teams, Deontay Williams, 69-yard punt return touchdown. And then later in the game, he had one that he almost broke. It was called back, but I mean, him and your special teams are just doing an outstanding job on the return game.
You know, I thought special teams was probably our best performance in a few weeks. We chart 6 special teams. We won 4 of the major, the 4 what we call core special teams. We felt like we won the punt game. We felt like we won the punt return game. We felt like we won our kickoff team really stepped up this week. We'd given up, a couple big returns in the last couple weeks, and we worked that. Coach Turner did a great job emphasizing that, and the kids really rallied. We tackled them inside the 22 or 3 times, and I thought that was a huge part to not give them field possession. And then we won the punt return game. So, those 4 we felt like we carried special teams, but Deontay's doing a great job. He's dynamic when he gets the ball in his hands. Now I talked to him after that punt return. I said that it was good results, probably a bad decision. The ball had hit and bounced a little bit, and we've got to make better decisions. It's one of those things where you're saying no, and then when he gets it and returns it for a touchdown, you're thinking, well, that was good. But we've got to make good decisions this time of year. And but man, is he dynamic when he gets the ball in his hands. And I think the rest of the guys are kind of feeding off that because they know if they do their job, he's going to give us a chance. He's had 3 straight weeks of some type of return, whether a punt return or a kick return. And we've had a couple big ones called back. We got to do a better job of understanding that we can break one at any time and not commit stupid penalties. But he's feeling it right now, and I think the guy that's given us some energy, and some of the other guys are saying, listen, if I can block this for 1 extra second, man, we're going to give him a chance to go to the house, and he's doing a nice job.
Well, his touchdown, the game was 14-7 at that point. Go in the second half, it's close. And then like you said, your running game really did a great job as a team, ground out 218 yards rushing, but Kendrick Agnor had a 42-yard touchdown run, 77-yard touchdown run, and a 13-yard touchdown run. 9 carries, 153 yards. And again, as a former offensive lineman, that starts all up front.
That's kind of what we've been missing a little bit is those chunk runs, those explosive run plays. We've had some explosive passes, but we haven't had a ton of explosive runs. And we preach to our guys that's the wide receivers getting their block downfield. Once we break the initial line, the wide receivers got to do a good job. Obviously, the offensive line's got to do a good job. So that was good. And I think the big point of the game is we went into halftime up 14-7, came right out, and I think 2 plays later we scored. That was good to see us come out. I wasn't happy with how we got off the bus. I don't know that we played great offensively in the first quarter, but to go in at halftime and regroup and come out and put a quick drive together to get up 21-7 was a big part of it.
They put a big drive together at the beginning, and then fourth quarter was all California Vulcans. And then it's always a great week whenever you see you have an offensive touchdown, a special teams touchdown, and your defense gets some points on the board this week with Samuel Hobbs' 44-yard fumble recovery. And again, that's another big play. And then you had, like you said, a couple other plays, stop on 4th downs. I know Keith Charney had a fumble recovery and a big 4th down stop earlier in the game. So all phases were clicking.
Yeah, our guys are playing hard, and that's what we ask. Play fast and physical, and I still don't think we've played our best football yet. And that's what I talked to the team about yesterday. I still don't know that we've put 4 quarters of offense, defense, and special teams together at the same time. And that's the goal this week. We've got to be better at what we do, and we got to fight complacency. This time of year, we've been at this for 14, 15 weeks, and it's almost like the movie Groundhog Day. You wake up on Monday, you do the same thing. You wake up on Tuesday, you do the same thing. We've got to fight complacency. We got to find a way, and I challenged the team yesterday, and the coaches included, that everyone's got to get a little bit better this week. Everyone's got to improve, whether it be mentally, whether it be physically. We've got to get just a little bit better. That's the scout team guys. That's the young guys. That's everybody. And if we do that, I think we've got a chance to be a pretty good football team.
We might have to get some Fight Complacency T-shirts coming out here. I'm inspired right now. But Before we turn the page to this week, let's take one final look back at this past weekend's action, the highlights from Gannon, and then we'll look ahead to this upcoming week's opponent, the Shippensburg Raiders. You're watching the Gary Dunn Show right here on CUTV.
Hill looking to scramble, directing traffic around a block. There he goes, numbers at the 40, down the left sideline, to the 10, to the 5, touchdown. Low snap. Hill did a good job of keeping it off the turf and getting the handoff executed to Agnor to the 20, to the 15, to the 10, breaks a tackle and heads in. Touchdown. Hurst, shovel pass. Keenan's got room to the 40. Right side, 25, 20, 15, angles left, 10, 5, touchdown. House call for Tristan Keenan from 51 yards away. Hurst dropped the snap, then he threw an errant toss, and it's recovered by Keith Charney, the strong safety. Agnor on the carry, finds a crease. Agnor to the 30, breaks a tackle. Agnor to midfield, being chased to the 30, to the 20, 15, 10, 5, two hands on the football, heads in for a touchdown. Wow. Handed off to Agnor, bounces off a tackle, turning the corner to the pylon. Touchdown, Vulcans. Ty Hurst backpedaling. Steps up, looks. Nowhere to go with the football, and then swallowed up from behind of the ball, popped out. It was Spell with the hit, but it's picked up, and it's going to be a scoop and score for the Vulcans on the other end as it's taken into the end zone by Samuel Hobbs.
Fall is back, and so is Vulcan football. Follow the Vulcans every step of the way during the 2025 regular season. The season kicks off with a Thursday night clash versus Charleston. Then home September 13th versus Westchester. Home September 26th versus Lock Haven. September 27th at Slippery Rock. October 4th at home versus Seton Hill. October 11th at Edinboro. Homecoming October 18th versus Clarion. At IUP October 25th. Home versus Frostburg State on November 1st, at Gannon November 8th, and the season finale at Shippensburg November 15th. Follow Cal Vulcans and CUTV for live links, highlights, and much more.
Hi, I'm Gene Sterator, CBS Rules Analyst and longtime sports official. Today, mistreatment of officials has become normalized, and we are facing an abnormal future where no officials to hire means no games on the schedule. And the positive effects of athletic competition are at critical risk for this generation and those to come. Videos showing abusive treatment of officials multiply on social media. And there have been consequences for the dreadful behavior of players, fans, and coaches. Your response in the heat of the moment is the only thing you totally control. Move that desire to lash out to a different place and encourage without rage. Just cheer for your child or the team you're there to support.
And welcome back to the Gary Dunn Show. Right there before the break, you saw the highlights from Gannon. And before we bring Coach back on to talk about this upcoming week's opponent, let's take a look back at what happened in the PSAC this past weekend. It was the last weekend of divisional play. See on the scoreboard, as we talked about, California 41, Gannon 21. IEP going to Clarion, winning by 3, 45-42. Shepherd over Lock Haven, 35-19. East Stroudsburg 45, Millersville 21. Edinboro 38, Slippery Rock 8, Shippensburg 43, Westchester 14, and then Kutztown over Bloomsburg 35-27. We'll take a quick look at the final PSAC East and West standings. You see the IEP and Kutztown will be playing for the PSAC title game this weekend, and we'll go through those schedules a little bit later on. And then lastly, the newest regional rankings came in. You see California is 5th. And once again, Coach, on that, we're 5th in the rankings for PSAC teams, and seems like almost your entire schedule. So there's no day offs for anybody in the PSAC, and especially your schedule this year.
Yeah, I think our guys have put us in a good position, and we got to continue to play better football. This is week 3 of the playoffs for us, and that's the way that we're approaching it. We're going to try and control what we can control, and that's go play a good ship team on the road for 2 straight weeks and go play our best football. And then, Sunday evening, we'll see where we're at.
And we go to Shippensburg this Saturday. Shippensburg coming into this game 3-7 overall, 3-4 in the PSAC East, but record's a little deceiving. They've had some close games, and if you break down their numbers, 16 points a game, 30 points against, 283 passing yards, and 85 rushing. But again, a couple of those numbers are screwed because 1 or 2 games they didn't do great in, but they've been in a lot of games. Yeah,
they have. They've played a lot of close games, and I think the thing that kind of jumps off the film is they're getting better. As a coach, that's what this time of year you want to see your team improving. They really had a good game last weekend against Westchester. Westchester's a good football team, and I think the final. What'd you say? The final was 38-14, maybe.
43-14.
43-14. That's even worse. But they played really well, and you can see them getting better every week. They've played. Clarion was a 1-score game. Lockhaven was a 1-score game. They have played their best football as of late. I think they put it all together. Last week against Westchester, they had some turnovers. Their defense was flying around. So it's good. Listen, anytime you play anybody in the PSAC, I don't care if it's week 1 or week 11. It's going to be a battle. You got to go up and be ready to play. Our focus this time of year is more about us than them. We've got to do a better job of executing our plan. We've got to do a better job of taking care of the football. We've got to do a better job of tackling the football. That's this time of year. That's what it's about. It's not necessarily about your opponent. It's about what do you do well, what do you got to get better at, and how can you put your best foot forward.
And looking at the stats, looks like it's kind of similar to what Gannon was last week. A team that passes a lot more than they run. They've trotted out 6 quarterbacks this year. Riley Gunnels is their leader, 1,800 yards, 12 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Leading rusher, Eric Anson, 337 yards with a touchdown. It looks like they have a pair of receivers, over 300 yards with combined 5 touchdowns. Yeah. So they do have some weapons out there on the offensive side.
And I tell you, their tailback had a great game last week against Westchester. I'm not sure what he had. I know it was well over 100 and 2 touchdowns. They're doing some Wildcat stuff, which always creates a problem. They're bringing a extremely talented skill guy in to do some Wildcat stuff, and he'll throw it a little bit. We're going to have our work cut out for us. We've got to play good football and understand that, this is another one of those games where you're playing and they don't have anything to lose. Mm-hmm. So they can fake punts, they can onside kicks, they can go for it on 4th down. They can do all those things because at the end of the day, they know this is their last game. So we've got to be prepared for everything. And we just got to go up there, like I said, and play our best football game, which I don't think we've played yet this year.
And another note that came out yesterday from Shippensburg, their longtime head coach, is retiring at the end of the year. I know you've played several times against him in the past.
Well, great guy. And the trivia fact is he was a nose tackle, I was a center. He was a couple years ahead of me. My freshman year, he took me to task. I started as a true freshman or played as a true freshman, and he was a 2-time, I think he was a 4-time All-League player. He was a really good player. So we battled, and I felt like the next year he was kind of my motivation, which would have been his senior year. But what a great career. I think he's been at Ship over 30 years. When you can stay at one place and coach football for 30 years, that tells you what kind of person you are, what kind of work ethic you have, and happy for him that he's retiring. Wish he wouldn't have announced it before the game. I feel like that's extra motivation, but well deserved for him.
Well, I tell you what, now maybe we can get a photo op of you guys going back to your playing days, maybe the 50-yard line before the game, just to see what just to see the old juices flowing again.
He's in better shape than I am. Still, I'd give him the nod right now.
But Saturday, 1 o'clock, let's take a look at the PSAC schedule. This is the last weekend of crossover in the PSAC title game. All the games will be in the east, so if you're driving east of the game, you're going to see a lot of PSAC bumper stickers going towards the coast. Headline, of course, by Kyle Shippensburg, 1 o'clock p.m. IEP in Kutztown, the PSAC title game at Kutztown. That game will be at noon. Another several games at noon. Edinburgh at Millersville. Seton Hill at Shepherd, A non-conference game, and we'll get to that in a second, Assumption at Westchester, and then Slippery Rock at Bloomsburg. Again, those are all 12 o'clock kickoffs. Gannon at Lock Haven at 1, and then Clarion at East Stroudsburg at 1:05. And Coach, as we mentioned before, the regional ranks came out, and there's some big games regionally. The teams that are in the region, here's that schedule, that are going to be fighting for those playoff spots, the 8 spots come Sunday evening. Cal Shippensburg, as we mentioned, IAP Kutztown. Like I said, a rare non-conference game this late in the year. Assumption at Westchester, Slippery Rock at Bloom. The CIAA title game features Virginia Union and Johnson C. Smith, 2 teams that are ranked 2nd and 3rd in the regional rankings this week. Fayetteville State, which is ranked regionally, is idle this week. Frostburg State at Fairmont State, and Charleston at West Virginia State. So basically what that means is there's a lot to play for. And if you're a college football fan, it's a great weekend. Maybe not so much for coaches trying to figure out what all's going on, but if you're a fan, this is what you want to see at the end of the year.
Yeah, obviously our guys have put us in a good situation to be playing meaningful football in mid-November. That's the goal. When our guys come to Cal, that's what it's about. So a lot of good football games, and we just got to go take care of our business.
When speaking of a couple of your guys, I missed a note here. 2 of your players were named PSAC Athletes of the Week. Samuel Hobbs, had a great game, 44-yard fumble recovery, and I feel like we could say this every week. Deontay Williams, PSAC Special Teams Athlete of the Week, because he's been, he's been there.
He's been doing it, and good for him. He works hard, and good for Sam. It's nice that those guys get recognized for their efforts.
We may have to nickname him Dr. Deontay for all the house calls he's been
we're
making.
not
We're not going to do
we're
that.
not doing nicknames.
Okay, we're going to
No.
stick with the shirt, fight complacency. Then we'll stop with that. But if you can't make the trip, CUTV's planning on being there this Saturday, 1 o'clock, so you can watch the game on the CUTV Sports 1. Also on the PSAC Digital Network, and also on over-the-air cable on Breezeline, and then Armstrong. But Coach, one last time to get the fans to come out. It's a turnpike drive. It's not too bad. You get to see a lot of God's country out there.
Yeah, not bad. And listen, it's been cold the last couple of days, but it's going to warm up for the weekend. So after being, it gets dark earlier now, and you're cooped up, you don't have anything to do. It's cold. Saturday's going to be beautiful. I think it's 55 degrees. Short 2.5-hour drive up the ship, and cheer on the Vulcans.
And I do know that it's been a couple years since we've been to Shippensburg, but I used to know that they had a great homemade pumpkin patch French fry thing. So if you're a fan out there, it's on the other side. So, but like I said, if you can't make it, CUTV will have you covered, and then we'll hopefully take care of business Saturday. And once again, go to calvulcans.com after the game for all the updated information. Matt will have links on to find out selection shows, schedules, all that other stuff. But first, biggest thing is 1 o'clock Saturday afternoon. So
maybe we should do an off-season show, and you can do food around the PSAC.
I'm okay with that.
You're right. Food and coffee shops around the PSAC.
I can get you some of the best pizza shops, and like I said, Shippensburg used to have, like I said, it was a small local restaurant brought in a food truck for French fries. So maybe after the game I'll walk some over on the way out. So
appreciate it.
But for Coach Dunn, I'm Gary Smith. Hope to see a lot of Vulcan fans making the trip to Seth Grove Stadium this weekend. You're watching the Gary Dunn Show right here on CUTV.